Welcome to Sports Art Spotlight, a video series where I get the opportunity to merge my love for arts and design with my passion of sports memorabilia and collecting. Now, I've had the opportunity to interview some amazing artists from all over the country, but this week I have a very special guest, Mr. James Fiorentino. He's a world-renowned sports artist. He's been doing this since he was 8 years old, and he's worked with everybody in the industry. He has some amazing stories. I can't wait to show you this interview. Thanks for watching, guys. Check out the interview. So guys, I have a very special guest here today, Mr. James Fiorentino, world-renowned sports artist. He's been featured in the Basketball Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame. He's worked with companies from Topps to Upper Deck, players from Mickey Mantle to Muhammad Ali. It's an honor to have James with us here today. James, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to it. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. So you've been painting pretty much your whole life, right? I mean, you started at a very young age. You were, I guess, some considered you a prodigy. How did you get involved with painting, and how specifically sports illustrations?
Yeah, I think for anyone who's an artist, it's something that's always there. You're born with it. So I just always remember now painting and drawing, since I was very, very young. My grandmother painted a lot, so I'd be drawing with her and painting at a very young age. And I think, just constantly doing that, along with playing sports as well. But my parents recognized it at a very young age. My teachers did. So I was very lucky that, I was getting support where I was taking these private art lessons and, every week painting with adults and learning every medium. And this is going back to 8 years old. So that was a critical time from like 8 to 12, 13, where I'm learning all the mediums, but watercolor became my thing. And I think that self-taught way of painting watercolor years later also, really influences people to notice my work and see my work. So yeah, starting out, at a very young age is really what helped my career big time.
So did you always start with portrait art, or was that something that you kind of naturally gravitated towards, or what did you start off with?
Yeah, I tell people, like, I think even today, I still paint and draw things I love. So it's just like when you're a kid and you're doing coloring books, or you would color what you liked. And so back then, this is like, early mid 80s, I would paint and draw toys or comic books or athletes like the Mets, the Yankees, the Phillies, the Giants. And so whatever I loved and had a passion for, that's what I was drawing and painting. And then obviously as I got a little bit older, not really older, but 12, 13, 14, my work started to get better, and I started to bring it to different events. And then obviously it led into my whole career, really almost starting at 14.
You mentioned Yankees, Mets, Phillies. So you grew up Jersey born and raised, right? You grew up a Yankees fan. So I know one of the first pieces that you worked on and got signed by a player was Joe DiMaggio. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, my mom loved Mantle Maris, loved the Yankees, would run home from school, watch the games. My grandfather would talk about DiMaggio being an Italian American. So I had that fascination, and obviously the wheelhouse of the time I was, collecting and watching these guys was Mattingly, and that mid late 80s kind of time period. So obviously, as the Giants are doing good, these teams are doing good, I was kind of following everything. But I remember going to Phillies games, seeing Mike Schmidt play. So I sort of was a fan of obviously all sports like I am today. And then again, I was just painting all these players that were around me at the time. I root for even today. And again, when you're working with players from different teams, it's hard not to become fans. So it's like, I want to see them do well, but obviously I always want to see the Yankees do well because that's my team. But I'm just an overall sports fan in general.
Do you still have some of those old original paintings from when you were younger?
I do. I have to start posting some of those. And I had them in a book I had done once, and I'm planning on working on a book very soon. So yeah, I have some like older pieces like that, which are really cool because I was going to little town art shows at like, um, gosh, like 9, 10, 11, 12. And I was selling little drawings, for $50, $25, and eventually $100. And it was all like those players from that time period. So I do have a lot of stuff like that. I even have stuff that's really not, it's much older than that, but still at a very young age that I'm finding that were like autographed by Musial and Willie Mays, all when I'm about, I'm going to say probably 14. So yeah, it's again, just doing it every day from that early age.
When you meet these athletes and you got a chance at such a young age, I mean, I remember getting a chance to meet some of my favorite players when I was younger. I was lucky to, go to these games and go to these training camps and meet these players. And like you said, when you meet these guys, it's like meeting your idols and you get hooked on that. Is that kind of what funneled you into this, sports art industry?
I think being a collector at a young age and then seeing sports art all over the place at that time. And again, this was sort of an early time period for that.
Mm-hmm.
You really had like Dick Perez painting on Donruss cards. You'd see some lithographs and some things and Leroy Neiman. And so visiting the Hall of Fame at a younger age and being influenced by that, all those types of things, and having family that were in the hobby at that time, which was very early on, all pretty much influenced me to say, hey, let me get something, unique and cool sign. Obviously I draw and paint, let me do that. So for whatever the reason, DiMaggio was the first guy at 14 that I went to an actual show to get signed. I had been to previous shows just as a young collector and some of the biggest shows that were happening at that time. But yeah, when he signed the painting, people were like, oh my God, this is incredible. You have no idea. And, I started to realize, oh, wow, this is a pretty cool thing. And again, you think like now having two boys and my one son's 13, to think of like being at 14 going up to DiMaggio to have him sign a painting, it really is remarkable. I look back because you don't realize that when you're young, and developing relationships with players at a very young age, whether it was DiMaggio to Yogi Berra at 15 and being at his house, to Rizzuto, and then eventually all those players that were affiliated with the Ted Williams Museum and Ted Williams, all at very young ages. So that was the influence, all came from being a collector. I mean, I was obsessed with baseball cards, that's all I wanted. And then, when I eventually could maybe get something better, it would have been autographs or baseball signed and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I've always considered myself an artist and a painter and an illustrator that happened to specialize and do very well in sports. But obviously my watercolors of nature and landscapes and other people I've painted have been nationally recognized. But that all lends back to I think being a really good artist that happens to just love sports.
You talked about being a baseball card collector when you were a kid. What was the feeling like when you got hooked up with Topps and they wanted your art for their cards? I mean, that's got to be like a dream come true for you.
It was amazing. That was, again, like, it's just, if you hear all these things like the Disney quotes of you have it, I forget it, but it's like, if you can dream it, you can try to achieve it, all those kind of things. And it's how I am even today. Like if I think that I want my work somewhere, I go for it. And that was with Topps. I wanted to paint for, to me, the greatest company there was for baseball cards. I've certainly collected them my whole life. And I talk about Jerry Dvorak being a friend and a mentor when the original Topps artist for the 53 Topps set. And ironically, my 99 Topps cards were, based on the 53 look. And that was very early on too, because there was not a lot of insert art cards. You had some in Upper Deck and obviously Dick Perez for Donruss, but for Topps to do that, it was a pretty big thing. And I was originally asked to paint all 20 of the subset cards, insert cards. I could only do 10 because I was in college. And so I remember working on them in school, but wow. To just, open up packs and get some of those cards, and they're still popular today. I don't think anyone at that time realized that, a kid who was like 20 years old or 19, whenever I was doing them, was painting those cards. And then that, ended up really being the stepping stone for Upper Deck in 2001, which again, people still ask me about and didn't realize if the Fiorentino collection in every sport there was, and also golf and some amazing cards in that set, and then led on to do more Upper Deck cards and other things. But yeah, it was like a dream come true. So like some of the Upper Deck cards in 03 had my artwork on the box. So again, it was a lot different back then because it's not like it is today where, there's been a million guys who paint for card companies. Back then, there were only a few of us, and so to be recognized at a very young age was a big deal.
When you have an idea for a painting or for a player that you want to paint, right? Do you do the reference first, or where does your inspiration come from? Because I almost feel like portrait art is capturing a moment, right? Capturing the emotion and the grit of baseball and the everyday grind of it. And I feel like that's somewhat of what you try and do in some of your paintings. Tell me about the process a little bit of how you develop some of your art.
I think, being an athlete growing up and certainly playing baseball in college, probably helps a lot in that, you have an idea for certain things. I think as I've been doing this for so long, what becomes better for me is, yeah, I think I do paint better now, although some of my paintings, honestly, at like 15 through 17 are maybe as good or maybe better in some of my paintings now. But what I'm better at is going into the size of them. What size should a painting be? The scale, what angle, what crop, what this. So I use a lot of ideas, sketch stuff out, a lot of reference material to kind of change up a lot of things, change up colors. So the process becomes very involved in that. And as far as like what I'm doing for people, it's a mix of everything. It's mostly a lot of commission work all the time, which has been steady for 25 years. So it's for private collectors, and it could be of any player. A lot of the paintings get autographed, which eventually we'll talk about. I guess the Fiorentino Elite collection, something like that. So it's a mix of all those things. It's sometimes for the players. Players contact me, their agents. Obviously, many, many companies over the years. My work's been in hundreds of books and magazines and covers and cards and everything. So
We could spend the whole Zoom talking just about your
yeah,
resume, right? I mean,
yeah,
pretty
it's
impressive.
crazy when you think about it. Because again, like I'm young for being a professional artist in a way, but because I've done it for so long, I've sort of been involved in almost everything you can with sports art. It's fun. Like that's what's cool about it. There's always something new. There's always a player I'm presenting artwork to or working with. And so that's the process essentially. That it's all. And for the detailed part of it, all my works primarily you see is done in watercolor. And again, it's very unique the way I paint watercolor. It's very photorealistic, almost like an acrylic or oils. Even a lot of professionals will see it and not realize how I'm doing it. It's drawn out in pencil lightly, and then it's really all the paint's doing everything. So it's a very quick medium. It's a very hard medium to master because obviously you can't make a mistake. You can make mistakes in other mediums and go over it. Watercolor, there are no mistakes, and it's a little bit trickier. But again, doing it every day for almost 30 years is what gets you to this point in life and what I'm doing and how I'm doing it for people.
Having started out at an early age, what advice would you give to young artists that are inspired or want to become a sports illustrator or just an illustrator in general? With social media, there's been a lot of shift in how people perceive art these days.
So that's a great question. So a lot has changed, some good, some bad, mostly good. I think the last 2 years, you're starting to see a good shift in that people are really recognizing sports art as an art form and a very high-end collecting form, just like it should for any illustration or paintings or like comic art and those type of things. Because if a Hank Aaron card or a Michael Jordan card, any of these cards are worth $500,000, $1 million. Why isn't a piece of art that's one of one signed by a player not that, or more? Because they're so incredibly unique and hard to also get signed sometimes. So I was lucky, and I would reach out to guys when I was young too, because I would follow a lot of these sports artists when I was young, and I would reach out to them for advice and talk to them. And again, I was like on their level at like when I was in high school at times, and was lucky to surround myself around a lot of those guys. Was lucky to be on the National Art Museum of Sport Board, where there were a lot of tremendous artists who did sports, and even guys that weren't mainstream, but were doing incredible fine art in sports, which I think is now also starting to become big. Mm-hmm. And so for the last 25 years, I've had so many artists contact me, some who have gone on to be big. And I love being friends with artists. I love being around them. I love helping artists. I love artists who want to help me as well. So I think it's like anything you want to be good at. You got to work at it every day. You got to work at it. You got to hustle. I hustled for 20 something years. I tell people like the national, all these things become big now. It's like I was doing the national 20 years ago. I
Yeah.
was maybe the only artist there, or me and maybe a couple other guys sometimes. So, I've been on covers of Beckett's and in Beckett's and in all these magazines for 20, 25 years. So it's a lot of hustle. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of pursuing stuff. The good news is you can get it out there more, again, like we were saying, social media wise.
Mhm.
But I'm still a physical person that I got to be somewhere. I got to meet people. I got to see people. Um, I've become a little harder to get to, but I still love being around and talking to people, because I think that's important. I think that when someone buys your work and is investing in your work, and now people are paying a lot of money for my work, for many years now, and it's been going up, and it's been going up personally and in auctions and different things. You develop a relationship with that collector, because for me, it's like, listen, I want you to buy my work, love it, enjoy it, and then obviously 10 years, 50 years, 20 years, a year, who knows?
Yeah.
And it becomes this incredible thing. That's a wonderful thing. But you're really buying it because you love the work, you appreciate it, you love the story. And I think that's the other thing I tell people. There are now thousands of sports artists. There never was any of that. There's everyone's painting for card companies.
Right,
I
right.
see it's millions of things, and you can get access easier to players now too.
Yeah.
So I always say it's your story. Not only is it how good you are, but you have to have an interesting story, and that's what separates you from everyone else. Because again, everyone's doing it, and so I think that's the beautiful thing for me, and the thing that I feel like I worked so hard to get, is that my story really is incredible when you look back at all the things. When I do these interviews and talk, like you said, I could be on here for 10 hours, because I've got hundreds and hundreds of stories with players, and not just players at shows, players on the field, before games, at their home, incredible stories and history type of stuff. So all of that builds into who you are, and what charge for your artwork, or where it should go, or where it should be. So that's really important for anyone starting out.
Well, speaking of some stories, right? I mean, I'm sure you've had some incredible experiences working with some of these players, or getting to meet some of these players. What is your favorite story to tell about, having been in some place where you're just kind of looking around and be like, I can't believe I'm here standing next to this person, type of thing?
That's why, like, in all honesty, like I really have to do this book, because I'm forgetting a lot of the stuff. It's
You
like,
gotta write it down. Getting old, man. You
yeah.
gotta write this stuff down.
And I've got like literally an archive of photos that are crazy. So I think it's like being at the Hall of Fame in the morning one day, early, before people were out on the street with Stan Musial and him talking to me about his career. It's with at the Ted Williams Museum with 50 Hall of Famers and guys like Mickey Mantle coming up to me, and sitting next to the table next to me was Mays, Ted Williams, and Mickey Mantle. It's
Unbelievable.
Muhammad Ali crying when he was signing a painting for me and we're hanging out. It's being at Ripken's 21, 30, and 31 game as a guest. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So, and I think, like, back to the Yankee stuff and having access to, being on the field for batting practice and working for players, and being in Joe Torre's office and being in the dugout during that run of all those World Series, just incredible, like, personal things. The Latino Sports Awards I do, being around all these players in intimate situations, becoming friends with guys like Mariano Rivera and Albert Pujols and Tony La Russa, and all, just, that to me is where the art goes into, like, these amazing stories. So again, if you're buying my work, anybody can paint Mickey Mantle, anybody can paint Pujols, but did they paint for them? Do they own the paintings?
Right.
Do they have stories? And I think that is what's been pretty amazing. And I've always felt very lucky and very blessed about that, very humble about it. But it really has been amazing to have achieved and done all that, and continuing that.
Now, you mentioned you have two sons, right? Are they interested in, number one, sports, and number two, art at all? Or do I know you don't want to be a pushy parent and kind of force them to do anything, but do you kind of drop little nuggets every once in a while, say, hey, you might want to take an art class, or, are they interested in that type of stuff?
Yeah, like, they've done art classes. They'll work with me sometimes. I don't think they have like the art bug like I did,
Okay.
Although they're creative. And but they're obviously very much into sports. They play all the sports. They're good athletes and love playing baseball, and that's always fun to watch. But I think sometimes from the creativity standpoint, aspect of everything, it's like some of that may lead into other things, whether it's like the writing side of something or music side of something. So, and it's nice. And also they start to understand now, more than ever, like what I do. Obviously, seeing me be interviewed or be in magazines or coming with me to events, they've been blessed and lucky to meet a lot of amazing people already in their young lives.
Yeah. I
So,
was gonna say
you know,
that's got to be pretty cool for them to be able to, meet some of these players that are larger than life because, dad knows them. My dad's like, that's got to be a really cool dad moment for you too, right?
it is, and that's what's more special to me, honestly. Like I don't want to say like I don't care anymore about that stuff because I do, but for me, it's them having them involved is what's awesome for me. I've been around everyone,
Mhm.
and so now to have them experience it or share it with their friends, or for me, other friends, family, and clients and stuff has always also been a really cool thing for me. And that's the benefits and the beauty of being able to do all these kind of things as a sports fan. Being around these guys.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter, half of me wonders if she does it just because she wants to be, doing what dad does, you know what I mean? But she comes to some of these autograph events with me. I took her to her first card show this year. She's 7 years old. So, and she was flipping out. She loved it. And just to see the excitement in her eyes, just from taking her to a card show or going to, a radio show and meeting a player to get something autographed. She has no idea who this person is, but she knows that this is what I love and this is what I enjoy. So having her there to enjoy it, like we just went to the Phillies stadium and we got to go down to the dugout and we got to go walk on the field, and it was just an amazing experience for her. But for me to be able to watch her do that too and enjoy it, it was a really fun time. So I'm living
Yeah.
vicariously through her as well. So
Yeah, that's amazing. And you know what? That's what, like, you don't know what's going to change someone's life or be that influence where what they do in life, or and that's actually what's really cool about the hobby when it's done right, and great shows and great events and meeting good players and collecting. And collecting's great, right? Collecting's a lot of fun. I mean, it really is. It's a wonderful distraction from the world. It's a fun thing. It's something you could pass on to people. You could share. So when it's done right, it's amazing. And I've always felt that way since I was little. So right, it's the same thing with my boys who like to collect, and enjoy showcasing stuff, and also being good to other kids and sharing stuff and giving things away and doing good things like that. So that's wonderful. It's such a great age to be able to get into something like that.
well, speaking of shows and exhibitions and things like that, you have a new line that's coming out, the Elite Collection, right? And it's going to be featured at the Philly show, which is they do it a couple times a year. If you guys aren't familiar with the Philly show, it's located in. They moved it to Oaks, PA this year. It used to be in King of Prussia, but it's the show to go to in Philadelphia for card collecting, memorabilia. You get to meet athletes. There's, talks and things like that. You're going to be at the next one coming up in, I believe it's May of next year, right?
Yeah, it'll be. I think it's the end of March.
End of
So
March, sorry.
The Philly show will do 3 shows a year: March, September, December, and I'll go there as a fan too. Like I'll be there this
Right.
weekend, sort of just walking around collecting. It's become to me one of the best shows in the country. It just happens to be, and it's the oldest show in the country, which is kind of cool. So I remember going to it when I was a kid. It was like Fort Washington, that whole thing. And
Yep.
last September, we debuted the There's Only One collection, which to me is one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on, because obviously being a baseball card fan, working on those paintings, which still continues now. And the Fiorentino Elite is essentially what I've been doing for 30 years, but in a higher end way. They're larger paintings. They're 22 by 30 original watercolors of the greatest, most legendary athletes of all time, and they're autographed original paintings. And so, it's just been a collection over the last probably couple of years as well I've been working on, that depicts all the different sports, legendary athletes in the different sports. So we'll debut it in March at the Philly show with a little opening, a little gallery style thing. And again, I love meeting fans of my work, people who've known me since I was younger, and then people who've never seen my work before. And again, realizing, I painted for this. I've done Beckett covers they've seen, or the PSA magazine covers that, last few years. And so that's a really wonderful opportunity to be around people at those shows.
Speaking of the PSA magazines, that's kind of where the introduction for you and me happened. Tell me about the contest that you ran for the PSA magazine.
Yeah, I love giving away things like that. And when you see me at shows, always signing stuff for people. So I think that was I probably did like 7 or 8 covers for about a 2-year period.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an honor because obviously that's when they switched to the PSA magazine from SMR. And yeah, it was a Michael Jordan painting I had done that he used for the cover. And I just did something on Instagram, which I'll do again, where it was just a free giveaway. It was like, hey, I'll sign a limited edition of these and give them away to people following me. And it ended up being great because, again, trying just to reach out to new people to see my work and my story. And obviously you came across it through a friend, which is super cool.
When I got that in the mail and I saw that it was signed by you, I was just blown away. One more question before I let you go. Where do you see your art progressing over the next 10, 20, 30 years? I mean, like I said, the landscape is changing. A lot of more people are doing digital artwork. Have you ever dabbled in anything like that? Are you comfortable with the style that you're working in, or do you want to try and explore new avenues and new medium?
People are always looking for alternative investments and assets. And obviously you're seeing that in the cards, you're seeing it in game used jerseys and tickets and all that stuff. All that boom is now trickling into sports art, which it always should have. You'll see comic book artwork that goes for millions of dollars. So now you're seeing it be like, again, you've got a painting signed by Mantle, you've got a painting signed by Ted Williams or Hank Aaron or Willie Mays. And so I think my work is only going up, whether it's from private sales or auctions. I think just keep expanding on that.
Yeah.
Don't
mess with a good thing and got going here, right?
Yeah, and I love doing it. And I think getting more involved in also, which I've been doing, which is my non-sports watercolors, which have been in a lot of major museums and museums around the world. So the more I become very well known for being in these national watercolor shows and books and magazines, with my landscapes and my portraits of everyday life, and only enhances my sports stuff. So I always do what, again, I was saying, which is honest to me, my passion. If I didn't like sports, I didn't want to do sports art anymore, I would stop it, but I still love it. But I do take the time to mix in some incredible other works of art. Certainly probably doing more sketching, more, I think for me, even from the watercolor side, probably doing more outdoor life pieces, plein air kind of stuff. But, I love when people see my private studio and my private gallery and come in, and whether they collect either one and say, wow, I came in here for hockey, but I just fell in love with your landscapes. These are like incredible to me. And so I see a lot of that, and I love doing that. So
I do have to come down and check out your studio one of these days, though. That would be an amazing experience just for me to see some of this stuff hanging on the wall. It's probably looks like a museum at this point, right?
Been, again, many, many years of doing it. So, and I love showing people. And that's why even the gallery show I'll be doing is a wonderful show, because it'll have a room filled with that type of work, and then the other rooms will be the new sports paintings that I've done. So it's sort of a great combination of all the things that I get to do, and I like that setting as much as I love being at the Philly show. It's two different types of settings. For me, it's knock on wood, if I can keep making people happy and enjoy my stuff. I really appreciate the way you feel about my work. Honestly, I still feel humbled and honored when people today will say, how much they love my work. And again, if it's new people or the same people for the last 30 years, and guys who've been collecting me for many, many years will even say, God, I think you really are doing some of the best stuff you've ever done. So it's really a wonderful thing to be an artist, to be able to either influence people, make people happy, make people who, again, buy your work are very excited by it. That's what it's all about. And then from a donation standpoint, raising money for charities and people, and just trying to do good with what I was blessed with is what it's all about.
Thank you so much again, James. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk to me. And hopefully we connect down the road for sure.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, James. Thank you so much. Take care.